Alright, so this is to just get familiar with the Windows graphics software called Paint.net. Like I said, it's made for Windows, can't be used on a Chromebook. The address, if you want to download it and install it on your own computer, is www.getpaint.net. The name of the program is Paint.net. So if you want to download it yourself, go to the home page, click on download, and you'll see the system requirements. And ignore these advertisements, they can be a little tricky, but right down here are two download options. Okay, if you do it on the second option, you have to pay for it. If you do it here, it's free. So click that one for the free version, download it, install it. There are some plugins and other things that you might also need or want to install. Microsoft.NET Framework 4.7.2 should automatically be installed on your system if you've got it updated, but if not, you can click on that link and get a hold of it. Alright, so let's launch the program. It's going to be on the Windows menu, and then depending on your version of Windows, you'll need to maybe go to All Programs or scroll through the alphabetical list of programs and find Paint.net, which is right there. And Paint.net is modeled after the same kind of windowing layout that several other programs like the GIMP and Photoshop are modeled on. So what you'll see is a toolbar over here with all the different tools that are available for you to use. Your canvas, the area that you're going to paint on or manipulate photos on. Some sort of color swatch or picker. And a history window that will allow you to go back in the steps that you've done and undo things, or see the different steps that you've done one after the other in order. And a layers palette. The layers palette, the canvas, and the tools are the three areas we're going to use the most, other than the menus across the top and so on. Alright, so the key here is to realize that what you're dealing with is a series of transparent panes of glass or plastic. Okay, so it's see-through. If we look at our canvas right now, we have a white background, much like if you just picked up a piece of white paper or a canvas that a painter would paint on. But if we just simply uncheck that box, we get this checkerboard. And the checkerboard is our visual clue that it is totally see-through. It's called transparent. Okay, when it's not see-through, it's called opaque. So you'll see transparency and opacity used to control how much an item can be seen through. The same idea is used in slideshows, like in Google Slides, where you have text that can be covered up by photographs, or photographs that can be covered up by text, right, depending on how you layer them in the background or the foreground. So if you imagine your canvas like a series of layered panes of glass or layered clear plastic, that will help you visualize and kind of wrap your mind around how this canvas works. Alright, so by default, when you first open it, you're going to get a white canvas called the background. We can add new layers by clicking that new layer button, and now we have two layers, the background layer and layer 2. And if we double click on any layer name, we can rename it to anything we like. So demo layer number 1, let's say. And there are some other options here. Here's that opacity. So I could change how opaque or non-see-through it is. If I turn it down to 0, that means it's totally see-through. If I turn it all the way up to 255, that means you can't have any see-through ability at all. Alright. So there we go. Now you'll see that my background is white and my demo layer is transparent. You can tell because the thumbnail for the background is white and the thumbnail for the demo layer has that checkerboard telling you that it's transparent. So these thumbnails are like little previews of what that particular layer has on it. Now if I take the background layer and I choose, let's say, some kind of color that's red, I can either use this disk to choose a color and brightness and darkness. Yeah, that's a pretty good red. Or I can use just one of these presets down here on these little color swatches. So if I change to the paint bucket or fill tool and I click, if my active layer is the background, it'll turn my background that color. You can see my top layer, the demo layer number 1, is transparent. The background is red, so what I'm seeing is I'm seeing all the way through demo layer number 1 to the background, which is red. Now if I changed colors to blue, and I use that paint bucket and I have demo layer number 1 active, it will give me a blue layer on top and a red layer on the bottom. You can't see the red layer on the bottom because the blue layer is 100% opaque. If I change that opacity level, that red will start to blend through and it will change it to a shade of purple or more red as I turn the opacity down and make it more transparent. So if I have it on 0, I'm not going to see the blue at all. The blue is totally see-through, like a pane of glass. If I put it halfway in between, I'm going to get a purple. Alright, so that shows you how layers work. I'm just going to delete this blue layer, and you can just click the X to do that. And I'm going to set my color swatches back to the default, and I think I will make my background layer yellow, and I'll show you why later. And I want it a little brighter than that. I want like a real strong yellow. That's a pretty good color right there. Alright, now we're going to play with a photo in the next demonstration, and having that yellow background is going to help with that. But let's play with some other tools. We have an eraser tool, which will allow me to just, like it was a paintbrush, erase the color that's on that layer. I can change the size of the paintbrush right here. So whatever my active tool is, right now it's the eraser, you can see all the options for the tool here in the menu bar. And right now my width is set to 2 pixels. If I make it 30 pixels, you'll see my eraser is much wider, and it's like having a wider paintbrush, and I erase a lot more at a single time. Okay, I could undo that by going back to this solid yellow, and I could choose instead the paintbrush, and you'll see there are different options for the paintbrush. I can again choose the size of my paintbrush, make it 15. Hardness means how flat the edges of the paintbrush are. So like a pencil, if you think of a pencil as a sort of paintbrush, or a felt tip pen that's very small, like a fine Sharpie, that's going to have a real hard flat edge on it. But if you were using a paintbrush like a watercolor artist might use that has bristles on it, you're going to get more feathering and softer edges. So let's turn the hardness way up, and oh, I need to change my color. We'll change my foreground color to black. Okay, and you can see that it looks a lot like maybe a Sharpie. And if I turn the hardness down, you see it looks a little bit more like a spray paint can might produce. Okay, and if you zoom in, which you can do by going to View and then Zoom in, or you can press Control and plus on your keyboard to zoom in. You can see the difference in the hardness of the edges pixel for pixel as you get closer and closer in. Okay, so this is a soft edge, this is a hard edge. Alright, and then you can choose how you want the paintbrush line to be filled. It could be a solid color, which is typical, or you could make it a series of dots. That would probably make it look even more like spray paint, something like that. You can change the color. Okay. There are lots of other tools here. Let's see. Basic tool would be the ellipse and rectangular selection tools. So if I took the rectangular selection tool and just drew a rectangle, it would make this a selection. You can tell what's selected by the squiggly lines that go around, and everything out here is not selected. Okay, and I could hit the crop button and it would throw away all the canvas outside my selection. Instead I could hit the delete key and it would throw away everything inside the selection. Okay, I'll undo that. Okay, I could take it, I think if I use the move tool, oh, that moves my canvas around. There was another, is it this one? Yeah, I can move the selection so that I have the same rectangle with the same dimensions, but I'm going to adjust what I have selected. And then I could move the actual selection if I wanted. Okay, and so it removes all the color from the area that I originally selected, and it takes those pixels and moves them to a different part of the canvas. Alright, so when I'm all done, I can save it. Now if I want to save it with all of my work in Paint.net preserved so that I could come back and keep working on it later, I would want to, let's see, right there, oh, I need to deselect. So if you want to stop working with the selection, you've got those squiggly lines, go to Edit and then Deselect. Alright, so I just filled it with 40% blue, and then I'm gonna make this transparent just to show you. Okay. Alright, so let's just say that I was done for today and I was going to come back and work on it tomorrow. I could go File, Save As, and I'd want to save it as a Paint.net file and call it Demo Graphic. Getting started. Alright, I'm in the Downloads folder and I will save. Alright, so if I close Paint.net, I could go to my Downloads folder the next time I wanted to work on it and find Demo Graphic Getting Started, and it would load it up, and I have all my work still there. My two layers are still there. Everything is the way I left it, and I can continue working on it right from where I left off. Okay, on the other hand, if I wanted to save a copy of it for using in another application, I can't, for example, use a Paint.net file on the internet or in a word processing program. So I need to export it or save it as a more common file type. So I do Save As, and usually I like to use PNG. PNG or JPEG are the two most popular graphic files used in all sorts of different kinds of software. So, and I think PNG has more features available to it. So I'm going to save as a PNG, and then you can adjust some of these settings about the quality and so on. Probably the defaults are just fine. Click OK, and then it's going to ask you to flatten it. Okay, now the reason it's warning you is because you're going to lose all this work, because flattening it means I'm going to take all these layers and compress them down into one layer so the result looks like this. Alright, so I'm going to flatten, and now I have two versions. Yeah, this is the paint.net file that preserves all the layers. This is the PNG file that I can use in other programs. So I could do like I could set it as my desktop background. Ew, kind of ugly, but I could, or I could open it with the Photos viewing app in Windows. Okay. Alright, so that's how to get started using Paint.net. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot more you can do with it. Google tutorials, also search on YouTube. There's a lot of YouTube tutorials as well. So have fun with that.